Good evening and welcome to the regular meeting of the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners for Tuesday, September 10th, 2019. Tonight's meeting was called to order at 7 p.m. and immediately moved into executive session for personnel matters. I will make the motion for the board to resume the public session of our meeting and will ask for a second.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, thank you. All right. Representatives of the Eastchester Board of Fire Commissioners have met with Local 916 and deliberated to amend the collective bargaining agreement between the parties for the period of ending December 31, 2019, with a new addendum that covers the years January 1, 2020 through December 31, 2024. This addendum to the agreement presented to the board for ratification today will include, but not be limited by, a 2.5% increase in base salaries for the employees each year and an increase in dental premium financing by the district of $5,000 per year, not to exceed a total of $140,000 in year 2024. The agreement will also include a sick incentive program for employees to utilize throughout the year that, depending on individual attendance, may provide earned time off to employees with the objective to help regulate sick time rates. Furthermore, the parties have agreed that all base salaries for persons hired between January 1, 2020 and December 31, 2020 will be decreased to reflect an amount of $55,000, and the number of salary steps thereafter will be increased from the 5 to 6 for each hiree and all subsequent hirees thereafter. The district's share of the family portion of retiree health care for these same hires has been decreased from the current rate of 90% to the percentage of 50%, which is a cost-effective measure for the future of the district, as are several other measures agreed to by the parties. I thank Local 916, Commissioner Tom Roach, and the members of the board for their patience and support as we have worked to bring the matter forward today. In light of the above, I will make the motion to accept the terms of this tentative agreement dated August 30th, 2019, and in doing so, the board would authorize the chairman or his designee to execute a collective bargaining agreement with Local 916, consistent with the terms of said tentative agreement, and I call for a second.
Can we have a discussion?
Yes, after the second. That's
Okay.
Robert's rules. Mr. Roach, thank you. Discussion.
I think this is probably, it's probably a very, very good deal for the union. They should be commended for getting as much as possible as they can out of the district. I think they did a phenomenally, if I was a union member, I think they did a phenomenally good job negotiating against the board. I was not part of that negotiation team. The one thing that I think is going to be problematic going forward, and I just airing this out there just because I think it's going to be problematic, there's a concept in here that the firemen are going to work straight time overtime. And I just don't see that functioning well from a cost point of view. In other words, I don't think when the chief makes phone calls to bring somebody in for overtime and he says, I'm going to pay you straight time, not time and a half, it's going to be hard for him to get people to do that. And when he's unable to fill a slot on straight time overtime for whatever reason, he's going to turn around and say, what am I going to do? Do I have to pay overtime to fill this slot, or will I leave it empty? So I think he's going to end up filling those slots with overtime. So my problem is the concept that you're going to have the cost savings involved here is going to be diminished, because I can see people working down the road 6 months a year. It'll turn into everybody who works overtime will be compensated time and a half. I just don't think the straight time overtime concept will work in the long run. I think the union and the membership should be very pleased with their e-board, because I think they did very, very well from their vantage point. I don't think not from our vantage point, from their vantage point, I think they did extremely well. And that's just how I feel. So I think that one of the other issues is there's a limit on how much straight time overtime a fireman can work before he triggers a federal rule that says you need to make overtime. You need to make time and a half. And I think we'll bump into that on occasion. So, and I also think it puts a very big onus on the chief to have to, I'm going to call them mommy may I days, because the chief is going to go, the membership is going to go up to the chief and say, may I take this day off, or may I take that day off? And then the chief has to slot these guys in when there's a day that no overtime is created. And I think at the end of the year, you're going to have a group of firemen who want their days to be used, and they're not going to be able to use them because of the, because they're going to generate overtime. So it puts the chief in an awkward spot. I would have much preferred the board gave a flat number like $1,000 every 6 months, and at the, every 6 months give the guy $1,000 for not calling in sick. The current incentive we're talking about, if a fireman comes to work for 6 months, doesn't miss a day for 6 months, he gets a day off. And if he misses, and so in a given year, he's going to get 2 days off. 2 days is 48 hours. For most people, that's 6 working days. So it's a generous incentive to make people come to work. Currently, about 20% probably 25% of the firemen don't miss any time. So there's, 20%, and 2 of the guys are in this room that never miss any time right now. But I just think a straight dollar number would have been cleaner for the chief. He doesn't have to manage this. He doesn't have to tell people you can't take the day off. He could have just gave them a $1 incentive. And, yeah, I think that's where I am on this. I just,
Well, that's great. Okay. So, not to let that be the only comment on the deal, because I don't think it should be. As you said, you recuse yourself somewhat from the process, but not 100%. We know that. These days are obviously earned every 6 months, which is incorrect to say that somebody's earning them 2 times a year and that they can also be used twice a year, because the last date is earned on December 31st of every year. So they would have to earn them the second 6 months and carry it over. So especially for the first year, you've only got a chance to earn 1 day that you can use in 2020, because you wouldn't be able to use your next day until 2021.
Right.
So
But
that's a
after that,
mischaracterization.
after
That's
that,
only
it's
if,
every year.
but however, you must be transparent in saying that it has to happen only if somebody actually earns it, which means somebody has to spend 6 months not calling out sick. And people can go back on YouTube and review meeting after meeting where we had to put more and more money into our lines in order to pay overtime, because people were, I'm not going to say abusing, but there was a high level of sick time being used, whether it's because of a flu outbreak or other personal matters. We were just pushing money in over and over into overtime. Secondly, we are going to be able to backfill these roles with straight time, which if you have 2 members right now and one of them calls out sick before the end of the year, anybody who happens to be called in to cover that time will have to fill that role with time and a half. This is an option where instead of 2 people, where one is out sick, getting paid straight time, and its coverage is going to be making time and a half, this is an option where we could see both individuals being paid straight time, which would be a cost-effective savings to the district. It's also an incentive plan that only works if people don't call out sick. If they don't call out sick and the plan doesn't work, then it's business as usual. I don't have the same feelings about this. Many other fire departments are taking advantage of similar programs like this, and it's 1 day every 6 months. It's not 1 day a quarter. And giving away thousands of dollars a year for somebody just because they didn't call out sick, at least we're having our men work, and they're coming in and they're getting paid straight time. I don't see this as a negative. But, Tom, do you have anything to say?
Sure. Well, first of all, I'd like to ask the chief, because most of Dennis's comments were directed towards the chief. So how do you feel?
We have had straight time in past contracts. I was looking at from 93 to 99, we had, the members were allowed personal days that were filled at straight time overtime, and I'm not aware that there was an issue filling it. There was an assistant chief at the time, so maybe, he was working harder to fill those spots, but it was still overtime opportunity for the guys to earn. So it's, we'll have to see. It's, like Commissioner Winter said, if 25% of the members didn't call out sick and it jumps up to 50, it is a bonus of people not calling in sick, but it's going to be, a lot of days for me to fill. So we'll have to see how it plays out.
But Chief, in the old language, what was the language in the old contract? If you didn't use it, if overtime was not available, you lost them.
Right, if there was not somebody available to work at straight time, then they would be denied the day off, and they would have to pick another day when somebody would agree to work straight time. That's what it said in the 93, 94 contract.
And you lost them.
Which is when they first came into play. And then those personal days disappeared when we got the new 24-hour schedule that began in 2000. So from 93 to 99, we had personal days, we had the old shift calendar, and then we went to 2000, all that time was merged into the vacation and float days.
Right, and these
So that's
days will
why it
also
ended.
disappear if they're not utilized in the time given. Oh, Steve?
Big difference.
I'd like to comment on this.
Back in the day, when the chief's referring to, the 24-hour schedule came in around 2000.
1,000, yes.
And we're referring to is having somebody fill a slot, an 8-hour or 12-hour slot, or were they 12, and what would you
10 and
work, 10
14s?
14s? So having somebody fill a 10-14 is a lot easier than filling a 24.
No, the membership is fully aware they'll be working straight time overtime, and they voted for this. We want this to work, just as you want it to work. It's a benefit for us, it's a benefit for you. And it's not going to turn into time and a half if the chief can't get anyone. If he can't get anyone, he can't get anyone. It doesn't turn into, oh, now I'll pay you time and a half to come in. Please come in. It's straight time. Membership want it. The membership will come in when they're called.
But what
Oh, you're
happens?
happy with it? You're saying
Yes.
you're happy with it?
Very happy with it.
Okay,
And
thank you.
you
Benefit for
understand, and the membership understands that if somebody doesn't step up to cover the tour, it's going to be
It
denied.
wasn't an issue because a lot of the membership was here for when we used to have them, and it was straight time. That's what we were used to.
Okay.
And there was
There you go.
no issue.
But what happens, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, what happens at year end? You know, you're in December, and you have a group of guys who are looking for a time, and there's just no time within year end for them to get it
They're
without
going to lose
just,
their personal day.
they're going to lose it.
Yes.
And nobody's going to file a grievance and
It's
complain?
in the contract, they lose it. If you don't use it
Okay.
by the end of the year, it's lost. You know, if you're going to wait till the last day, you know, not a very good move. If you want your personal day on December 31st, you better say it on July 1st that you want it on December 31st, or else you're going to lose it. It's simple as that. You know, you take responsibility for your own actions. If you're stupid enough to sit there and wait till the 31st and call up that day, you know what? They should work somewhere else.
And further to that, Steve, we should also note that no two members can utilize the day on the same day.
Correct.
It has to be used one at a time at the chief's discretion, and not you and somebody else can't use it on the same day. The chief.
First come, first served.
Correct.
And I would also like to say that, as Dennis correctly suggested, that the union did fairly well in this contract negotiation. That's absolutely true. Yeah, because we wanted to be fair, and of course, there was negotiations, there were givebacks, there was minimal legal expense, because we sat down like gentlemen, and we hammered out a deal, and God willing, we'll go forward, and this will be the norm. There will be no arbitration in Eastchester Fire District, local negotiations. We'll sit down like men, we'll talk about things, and we'll try to give each other what we need.
Well, I
Thank
don't know
you
if
very
want
much.
to sit down like
And
men. Sit down like men is not exactly
All right,
the
men and
current
women.
frame we're supposed to be using.
My
I would
apologies.
also mention, based specifically on your retirement comment, that the retiree health care plan now, for those people hired after 2020, will bring the district's share of that expense down from $26,000 per person for family share to $19,000, which is a big savings in the future for a future board. Right now, we are paying 26. Prior to that going up, it was at about 20. So there was a $6,000 increase for those people hired between January 1, 2012, right? Or is that right? No, January 1, 2013 through now December 31, 2019. So those new hirees will help the district by limiting that cost from 26,000 to 19, provided that they have a family plan at the time of retirement. Night shift rules apply.
Yep.
Okay, so that's discussion. I would ask for Lisa to please call the roll.
Chairman Raven,
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Winter,
Abstain.
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
No.
No?
All right, motion carries. Next, approval of minutes. The board has received and reviewed the minutes prepared by our secretary. Will now move to approve them. They are for the approval of the July 30th, 2019 special meeting minutes and the August 13th, 2019 regular meeting minutes. I would make that motion and ask for a second.
Second.
Mr. Roach, all in favor?
On the motion. Lisa, there's one thing in there that said that I abstained from going into executive session. I don't think I abstained on that.
Really? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check it.
Okay. All right, it's probably a misprint.
We'll approve it with that
Yeah.
correction. All right, fabulous. Anybody opposed? No? Okay, that motion passed. Treasurer's account. Next, this evening, as part of her monthly treasurer's report, Jamie Edstrom will also be presenting the district's tentative 2020 operating budget. So however, in whatever order you'd like to do that, Jamie, feel free to do so.
Sure. I'll start with just the regular treasurer's report to get that out of the way. We're looking at the financials through August 31st. They present a net budget surplus of approximately $584,000. There are certain expenses that are trending lower than expected. Those would include our professional consultant fees, vehicle maintenance, our physician costs, and our workers' comp. Additionally, certs are under budget, as a lot of the proposed settlements haven't actually settled yet. And so it's possible at this point that those could go into 2020. We may not pay those in 2019. And finally, you know, we've been investing in Treasury Direct, which is generating a decent bit of interest that was not obviously accounted for in the budget when we put it together for 2019. For the most part, the expenses are where we would expect them to be. There's no budget transfers needed at this time. It looks like at this rate, we probably won't do them until we're closing out the year at the end of the year, so I don't see any major ones coming, but obviously I'll continue to track that. With respect to Treasury Direct, we currently now have $9 million invested, with another $2 million investment that'll be made next week. I did reduce one of the investments. You know, as we're getting later into the year, we have certain expenses coming up, just to have a little bit more cushion in our general operating account. And then I do plan on reducing that again come November. That's when we'll start getting into some of our larger expenses when our pension costs hit, and such. But we will still be able to maintain a decent amount in there, but it is coming down some from the 12 million that we've had in since we began in May. Speaking of the pension, we have received both our estimate for this year as well as our projection for next year. This year's estimate came in just over $2 million, which is basically what we expected. It's below the budgeted amount, so we'll be fine there. I would imagine it's the board's intention to still pay that in December of this year to take advantage of the discount that you get for paying up front. Otherwise, it would not be due till February. And then as far as the projection for next year, we did see that we have different, members in different retirement tiers, and this year, the contribution rate for each tier went up. That's different from last year. It went down last year. So the cost is projected to go up next year, up about $150,000, which is accounted for in the 2020 budget I'm about to provide to you. And then, just as we're talking about the budget, just from a logistics perspective, we have until September 24th for the board to adopt the proposed budget. So if that doesn't happen tonight, we have to do that by the 24th. And then after that, we will post notice in the newspaper in advance of our October 15th budget hearing, which is taking place at 255 Main Street. And, the public will have time. It'll be available on, our website, at the town, through FOIL for anybody who wants to review the budget in detail. Okay. Any questions on that, or just?
On the tiers, most of the senior members, not the younger members, most of the senior members, what tier are they in right now?
In tier 2.
2? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Would it be helpful to put the budget up on the website? So
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I think it's one of the things that it's required since we have a website, we do have to put it up there. So once it's approved by the board, the proposed budget, then we can post it up there.
Are there many members left in 2?
Yeah, it's the majority.
Really?
At least 20, at least 50, probably 40 to 5 to 50.
Yeah, it is the majority, because I don't think there's only a tier 5, I think.
There's only a
was
couple tier 5s.
Only because of some transfers in, and then the rest are tier 6, but the majority is tier 2.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, to me, you did a great job, again, putting the budget together as usual. And the Treasury income really does help. We have
Yeah.
the projected $100,000. Right now, rates are relatively around 2%, I think you're getting, right?
Yep.
And that could evaporate overnight if the Fed cuts the rate, and it's actually the cheapest place to invest on the curve right now, and the Treasury curve is the front end, because the curve's so flat or inverted. So, yeah, that's been a great program, and you've executed it well. So I think everything looks perfectly fine by me.
All right, so just to get into the budget discussion, I mentioned at a previous meeting, looking at our tax cap calculation based on the factors that are set by the state, as well as carryover that's available to us from prior years, where we've never raised up to the full amount of the cap. We have the ability this year to raise taxes 3.9% without exceeding the tax cap, which would be approximately $675,000. The budget that I'm proposing tonight comes in under this at 2.63% increase, which is a difference or increase to the taxes of about $450,000. Some of the main factors, obviously, our biggest expenses are salaries and the benefits related to those salaries. So a few things we have to account for. As we just talked about, we're going to have salaries increasing as we go into 2020. That, impacts the pension and other related costs. We do know, like I said, that the pension rates are going up themselves. So that is a cost we have to account for. And then the healthcare costs, right now, NYSHIP is estimating approximately a 5.4% increase. So we took that into consideration for our budget as well. Other items that are in here this year, same as last year, we're anticipating using reserved and unreserved funds as we move forward with Station 4 and other capital improvements that have to be made. We've included some upgrades to department technology, certain things the chief has expressed interest in, some emergency response software, and some other training items and other things that would benefit the district that are one-time purchase. And then it's also, the board voted earlier this year on potentially hiring a part-time attorney. Whether that's going to be an actual employee or on a contract basis, that's built into this year's budget as well. So I would say that really those are the main changes that increase, that get us to that proposed increase of about 2.63%. It's in line with what we know are those costs, which are our major driving factors, are increasing. So I don't know if anyone has any questions or on specific lines.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks for all the work that you've done on the budget year after year. We really do appreciate it. I know everybody attacked this in their own way. Some people came to see you, some people via email, some other questions. I'm glad that we had a chance earlier today to also sit down and go a little bit line by line as much as we can. I don't know if anybody else has a comment or anything like that.
No, I think I'm pretty clear on it.
Okay. So I guess if that's it, I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed Eastchester Fire District budget. Total expenditures of $17,695,499.704. The proposed tax increases is 2.63% and is an increase well below the New York State tax cap. The total increase in 2020 expenditures would be $454,043.38. The proposed budget cannot be increased once adopted. The board will simultaneously move for final budget adoption on October 15th, 2019, again at 255 Main Street in Eastchester, also known as Fire District Headquarters, at 7:30 p.m. in the evening after the completion of a public hearing. In addition to this evening's meeting, the board may move to hold a public budget workshop and it may be scheduled as part of a special meeting. If so, it will be noticed accordingly and occur prior to the date of October 15th, if we find it necessary. With that, I would again make that motion and ask for a second.
I'll second it.
And poll the board, please, Lisa.
Chairman Rabin?
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie?
Aye.
Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. Thank you, Jamie. Thanks again. And also, thanks again for mentioning, I did too, the 255 Main Street. Lisa's been kind enough for all of our public notices to indicate well back for several months that we knew in advance that we were not going to be here in Bronxville. We really do appreciate Mayor Marvin, her staff, Mr. Palmer, the board, always allowing us the opportunity to meet here. Due to scheduling conflicts, I think we discussed earlier, both the October 15th meeting, bless you, will be at 255 Main Street, and also our November meeting, second Tuesday of that month, will also be at 255 Main Street due to a scheduling conflict and no other home for us otherwise. But we should be back here for our December meeting, which will happen the second week of December on that Thursday, I believe is right. Okay, so thanks again. Jamie, thank you. Payment of bills. The board has reviewed this month's bills and warrants and makes a motion to pay them. The first and only set of warrants are dated September 10th, 2019, the total amount of $94,532.88. A credit card bill dated September 18, 2019, totaling $85.35, bringing the monthly total to $94,618.23. I would make a motion to pay those and ask for a second.
Second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, thank you. Chief, your report.
Thank you, Commissioner. Monthly activity report for August 2019. Total alarms, 330 for the month. Fire-related, 6. EMS and rescue, 183. And we gave mutual aid to the city of Mount Vernon one time during the month. A lot of radio work this month. Portables, base radios, and a couple other things I'll add to my report. The installation work for the Altice light pad tie lines has now been completed. Today, ESS began the process of putting the tie lines in service. The new base radios are online, and all the tie lines are in service with the exception of Chester Heights Firehouse. Chester Heights tie line will be activated tomorrow. The 24 new portable radios have been ordered and should arrive later this month or sometime in October. And regarding the radios, I have sent the board 2 quotes for work to be done. One is to replace the backup batteries for the repeater radios at Chester Heights Firehouse, Lawrence Hospital, North End Firehouse, and 235 Garth Road repeater. The quote is on Westchester County contract pricing, and the total cost is $303,685.76, which includes installation of the new batteries and removal of the old batteries. I also need some work down at the Chester Heights Firehouse to relocate the repeater antenna. It had to be moved off the building and into the attic during the exterior construction. It was in the way of the scaffolding. It can now be moved to the new antenna base and stanchion that was installed during the roof replacement a year and a half ago. The quote to relocate the antenna is also, the work is on Westchester County contract pricing and is total cost $2,475.83. I would request that the board approve both of those purchases. Maintenance mechanic Tim Dalton has been busy with several projects. He has gotten 3 quotes for the flat roof repairs at fire headquarters. There's the one right by the flagpole, which is above the entrance foyer. That flat roof is leaking. And also the one on the left side of the firehouse by the garage. It covers the garage and goes into our storage area. That is also leaking. Tim got the 3 quotes, and the cheapest one was from J. Salvatore and Sons Incorporated in the amount of $19,250, plus the additional cost of $100 per sheet of plywood installed as needed to replace rotted wood decking. So I request that the board would approve that so we can stop the water from coming in the firehouse. Vehicle maintenance continues through the use of outside vendors. Leases has provided all the information and photos to Auctions International, so the surplus engines, old engine 31 and old engine 28, should go on the auction block soon, hopefully. Fire prevention and code enforcement activities continue with numerous plan reviews and inspections. Captain Pinaval met with the Eastchester Building Department and the developers of the property next to fire headquarters on Main Street and he's keeping me advised of the progress. They are busy scheduling their fire prevention demonstrations at the local schools for the month of October. Next month, I hope to have quotes for the SCBA Cascade system. There were some questions on the warranty, and unfortunately, one of the salesmen had a death in the family, and he was not reachable until next week. He's out of town for the week. And then next month, I also hope to have quotes for the new chief's vehicle. Currently, 2 members are out on long-term absence, and 1 member continues to work on restricted duty. Tomorrow, myself and some of the working members will be attending the Town of Eastchester annual September 11th memorial service, which begins promptly at 8:35 a.m. in the lobby of Eastchester Town Hall. And in closing, I respectfully request that the board close tonight's meeting with a moment of silence in memory of all the first responders, civilians, and members of the military that have been lost as a result of the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
I thought I saw, and I looked at really briefly before I came here, that there was a revised invoice from Salvatore?
So the date of the original invoice was from November 2018. Chairman Rabin asked that I could get it updated to reflect that it was still a valid quote. He had verbally told me that he would still honor that price, but Commissioner Rabin was more comfortable if it had a more current date on it. So that was the revised quote.
I'm not 100% sure, but, I mean, I could have read it wrong, a little dyslexis, but I thought it said 29,000 when I looked at it very briefly today.
Though there was 3 quotes in my email to you,
One of
so,
them was 29,000.
yeah, so the Salvatore and Sons was 19,000, Summit Construction was 28,000, and BDW Roofing LLC was 33,220. So the Salvatore one,
It was 19,250.
I have it here, yeah, so.
Good. It's good to look at.
It was $12,500 for the rear roof above the garage and $6,750 for the front flat roof. And again, it's $100 a board of plywood to install to replace the decking, so.
Great, Chief. Thank you. Thanks very much. And we certainly will be closing out tonight's meeting in remembrance of 9/11 after our presentation. So the first motion is approval for the chairman of the board to approve and execute a sales agreement between the Eastchester Fire District and ESS of 250 Clearbrook Road, Elmsford, New York, for the purchase and installation of a new Northstar 12-volt top terminal batteries for the Wilmot Road, Garth Road, Oregon Avenue, and Lawrence Hospital antenna locations. Is that correct?
It's
Good.
the repeater.
Repeater
radios.
locations, apologize. The expenditure totals $3,685.76. The board calculated these funds and made same available in the adopted 2019 budget. I'll make that motion, ask for a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, great. Second motion is approval for the chairman of the board to approve and execute a sales agreement between the Eastchester Fire District and ESS Inc. of 250 Clearbrook Road, Elmsford, New York, for the relocation of the antenna at the Oregon Avenue or Chester Heights Firehouse location, including a new mounting structure, cable and grounding, and attic receiver. The expenditure totals $2,475.83. The board calculated these funds and made same available in the 2019 adopted budget. Make that motion, ask for a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Wonderful. Abstain? I'm sorry, I didn't ask that. Pursuant to Chief Tween's director of our maintenance mechanic, obtain quotes for the replacement of 2 separate roof sections of our Main Street Firehouse. In light of this work and reporting, I recommend to the board today to move to empower the chief of the department to engage J. Salvatore and Sons, Inc., whose quote for said work came in at the lowest price point in the amount of $19,250, which will include an additional fee scale of $100 per sheet installed, if any, of rotted wood decking. The other proposals received by the chief also included fee scales for additional wood decking replacements. I would make that motion and ask for a second.
Second.
It's Winter. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? Okay, great. Thanks, Chief. So,
Thank you, Commissioners.
thanks for bringing that all to our attention, and let's make it happen. Ethics policy. We had a recommendation at the last meeting that the board approve to amend our district ethics policy to include an option for the district to utilize a panel made up of resident volunteers or ethics counsel After further discussion on the Code of Ethics and potential revisions, a motion is before the board to approve the revised Code of Ethics as of this date, September 10th, 2019, solely as it relates to the revised language and manner. Hereby direct that the updated document be distributed and posted in accordance with the law. I would make that motion and ask for a second.
And, yeah, and I will just read what the change is, the majority of the change. And as an alternative, this is section 14A, and we're just going to add the line, as this is from Cheryl's wording, as an alternative to the Board of Ethics, the Board of Fire Commissioners may retain a qualified outside ethics counsel to provide informal opinions, provided that the Board of Fire Commissioners approve the expenditure. And that ends that sentence. And then in the next paragraph, B, it says the Board of Fire Commissioners or alternative ethics counsel, and then the paragraph goes on, and then she adds alternative ethics counsel at the end of the paragraph, and then one more time, she adds those same words in C. And that was the majority of her revision, except for one or two spelling corrections.
Okay. Do I have a second on this?
Second.
Mr. Roach?
And that spells out the mechanism that we convene as a board, we discuss whether we want to move forward.
Does it? I thought it just
Well,
says
it
that
just
we
says, no,
approve the
the board has to
expenditure.
approve the expenditure.
We don't have a mechanism approved.
The expenditure, the approval is if you don't approve the expenditure, nobody goes and
Right,
asks the
exactly.
question. There's you want to give it to Lisa, that's what the board approved.
Well, doesn't the board have to vote?
Well, we do, that's what we're going to do. You just read the resolution, I would make a motion,
Well-
we adopt it.
Well, no, my question is wouldn't the mechanism be a vote in order to send something to council, not to approve the expenditure? I mean, how would we know how much the expenditure is? Are you saying, so really what you're saying is that you're approving the item to go to the ethics council? How that sounds to me is we're approving a cost, but we wouldn't know how much it would cost at the time
We don't know
of
how
doing
much
it.
it's going to cost me to send it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. So why are we approving expenditure instead of a matter?
Yeah, and I don't even know if we
Are you
can.
not
I think that we have to
comfortable
vote.
with the
No,
language?
don't twist my words. I'm asking a question for clarification for language. Are we approving an expenditure, which is a cost, or are we approving a matter to go to Ethics Council? I mean, obviously, we know what the cost is. It's $250 an hour, or whatever it is. That's what I don't understand. Like,
You're-
why is
You're
the...
approving the expenditure of sending something to Ethics Council.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But you're approving an expenditure, but you're not approving the actual matter.
No, you're not. But if the lawyer's not going to opine on it if the board hasn't sent it to him.
Well, that's...
Right, well, I guess what Stu is saying, or at least this is what I'm understanding, is if a commissioner has an issue, or if a member of the Eastchester Fire Department has an issue, they bring it to the board, and then the board decides as a unit to vote on whether we think that this should proceed to Ethics Council.
Yeah, I'm more concerned about future boards and thinking that this is language that's saying, oh, well, of course, we're going to approve the amount. That's nothing. Oh, but are we going to send this to Ethics Council? That's my question. Like, there's no language that says approve a matter. A matter needs to be approved by majority vote. All it says is the board approves an expenditure. There's no mechanism. Is it a vote? Is it the chairman saying yes? Is it just a majority of people over email saying, send it?
Maybe
the
we should
mechanism?
maybe we do need to write a mechanism, how we receive
Right.
and how they're
And how it goes. I
sent.
mean, I thought that's what Cheryl was supposed to put in. You had that in your email to her.
I read to you the exact email Cheryl sent to everyone.
I understand that. I'm not disagreeing with the expenditure, but what I'm saying, it doesn't mean that it's not missing something. I
I don't
approve
think
that.
it's missing anything.
Well, that's fine, that you don't think it's missing, but your email specifically asked her to provide how the matter would go to Ethics Council, and looks like she just said that you would approve the expenditure.
No, she read it, we emailed the board, I emailed her and the board at the same time saying, this is the question we're asking. She came back and said, has the board opined on her giving the answer? And I said, yes, the board is okay with her giving us the answer. And that's when you all filled in on it. So I would make a motion, we adopt this, the proposed changes to the Code of Ethics.
Well, I understand that, but we're having a discussion, right? We already have the motion out there. The motion's out there,
Okay.
and it's seconded. We're having a discussion.
Okay.
My thing is your email specifically asked her and stated that the board wanted a mechanism put in to show how it goes to Ethics Council, and she didn't do that. What she did do was put in that we could use Ethics Council, instead of a panel, and that we would approve an expenditure. But she didn't put in the language that says, is the matter going to be approved by the board through a vote? Is it a majority rule? Is it, maybe I'm playing devil's advocate here, but I mean, I
We
would.
could certainly
I would
add that
want-
language.
Yeah, I
It
would
wouldn't
want that
hurt.
language to
Would
be
you be
in
opposed to
there.
that language, Dennis?
Yeah, well, since we're discussing this, we might as well go right ahead and discuss it.
No, we're discussing this right now.
Right, well, this is all
Right.
part of the same.
No,
this
what it is,
all-
it's going to
Well,
be
let's-
you.
I asked you a di-
He asked you a
question.
direct question, and you're not.
I
Are
would
you opposed
adopt-
to that language?
I would approve the language she gave us. And then when a question comes up of ethics, the board can decide whether it wants to send it to the council or not.
But
And
that's
if
not
they
what the
choose
language
not to,
says.
well, that's what I think it says.
It doesn't, though. It says we're approving an
That's
expenditure.
your opinion, but there's
But
five
that's the
board members.
words. Expenditure.
Okay, here's the
That's what it
question.
says. Am I wrong?
Nobody seemed to have a problem with this language. No one seemed to have a problem with this language until I sent out an email asking 3 questions.
I only read this today.
Okay, well, we've
And
had
then
it,
also-
we've
just
had
like
it
how
for a
some
few
commissioners
weeks.
don't read anything until we get to a meeting. Today was my turn. I didn't read this thing until today.
Okay, well, let me give you the 3 questions I was hoping to get answered after we passed this
There's
tonight.
probably more than 3, isn't there?
Well, no, I only have 3 tonight. I'm not dealing with Mr. Laurie. I'm dealing right now with 3 questions.
What did you say?
I'm not dealing with
He
the
said he's not
questions I
dealing
have.
with you tonight, so you have the night off.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't worry about it.
So
It's all right.
here's what I was hoping to have Ethics Council opine on. I'll start with question 3 first. Our chairman
Oh,
works
was
for
it
the...
about me?
Yes,
Oh, wonderful.
okay.
People need this.
Might as well have it.
Only you love it.
Our chairman works for the town of Eastchester.
I
He's an
do.
Eastchester town
I work for
employee.
the Department of Parks and Recreation.
Right. And so my question would be,
I do. I get paid by the taxpayers.
you get townwide taxpayers, not just Eastchester,
Does that
townwide.
matter?
Well, it's different. It's townwide. It's the same thing as a fire district.
This elected position is townwide.
Okay?
not
So
outside.
my point is, if I'm allowed to speak, my point is, I would like to have Ethics Council, we have an ethics policy that says the appearance, not actual conflict, the appearance of conflict. And I would like Ethics Council to opine whether there's an appearance of a conflict when a public employee of the town of Eastchester, an employee of the town of Eastchester, negotiates salaries for office workers in the Eastchester Fire District when he's an office worker in the town of Eastchester. The same thing would be true in negotiating, and would it matter if you were a union representative in the town of Eastchester and you were negotiating a contract with the union membership in the town of the fire district of Eastchester?
Am I a union am I a vice president?
I don't know.
You do know because you emailed me directly, and I responded back to you saying that I was no longer a vice president of my union way back around 2017. And those negotiations happened when? July of 2019. So you have the
I didn't
answer.
know when you stopped being a union member.
Are you kidding me?
Are
Do you
you-
want to read the email?
I didn't know when you stopped being a VP. It didn't say when you stopped being.
You asked me directly, Dennis, and I sent you an email back because you...
Okay.
Don't put your hand up at me, because that's the truth. And you've received the email, and you have the answer,
All I'd like to do
is ask the
have
question
Ethics
out loud that you
Council-
already have the answer to.
Have Ethics Council opine whether it's appropriate to have town employees negotiate contracts with other town employees. And if they
But
say,
they're not town employees.
well,
They're
they're
not.
paid for by the taxpayers.
Excuse me, they're not town employees, though.
No.
They're not paid for by the town. They're paid for by the same taxpayers, but they're paid by the fire district, which everyone up here was duly elected to do a job. And if the electorate had a problem with a conflict, then I wouldn't be here right now.
I'm not saying conflict. I'm saying an
You are saying
appearance.
conflict. Dennis, you don't wadir the board into thinking that something is what it isn't or isn't what it is.
Okay.
You know, this is a personal problem that you have.
It's not, it's.
It is. It's a personal problem. Because if I worked for Lord & Taylor, you would find some other conflict that you would come to. Like, they have alarms that go off, and the fire department reports them.
Well, I'd also like to
It's a
know-
waste of taxpayer time.
I would like to know also if a commissioner takes and buys the health care from the fire department, is he restricted from doing anything?
No,
like
he's
myself?
not. He's not.
Well, why
he's
don't you
not.
just get an answer?
Well, we know the answer. He's not. Why would he may be restricted from voting on the matter, but he's not restricted in participating. You like that guy, Bob Freeman, from the Committee on Open Government. He has lots of letters that refer to that.
Bob Freeman does not write opinions on ethics.
He does.
No, he does
I looked at them
not.
yesterday.
Bob Friedman only writes opinions on New York State Public Officers law.
Not true. He does have ethical opinions up there, and one of them was specifically about somebody who was in the same town negotiating whether or not they had to be recused from a matter and whether it was an ethical issue. You can look under E. There's a whole ethics section. He does. Well, he doesn't anymore. He doesn't anymore because he
only
got
opines.
fired. So
Right.
he doesn't work there anymore for
But
assaulting
Bob-
and sexually harassing
Right.
women. So he
But-
doesn't work there anymore.
Okay, but I would like, Bob Friedman only opines whether ethics matters or public information. He does not opine on ethics opinions. Ethics opinions are opined by two people in New York State, the New York State Attorney General and the New York State Controller's Office. And the New York State Controller's Office, about 10 years ago, got out of the business of writing ethical opinions. If you want to read about ethical opinions, you read the New York State Attorney General's website. You don't read the New York State Committee for Open Government. That's a completely different group.
So only they opine and our ethics council opine?
No.
Only those people?
Well, I would like to see, the reason why we go around these debates is because the board constantly does not want to adopt a policy that's usable.
What are you talking about? This policy was in place before any of us got elected. Didn't you partially write this policy?
Yes.
So if it's not usable, whose fault is that?
It's not usable because we can't get people to volunteer as on this committee.
But the panel was only established last year. This thing was first drafted when, 2014?
No, the panel's always been on there.
No.
It's always had a panel.
But we added new language into it
We
last
only
year
added
for the
new
panel.
language on what we adopted, you have to go again. I'll give it a lesson. About 10 years ago, in 2000, maybe 12 years ago, in 2007, because of all the corruption in the volunteer fire companies, New York State came out and insisted that they come out with a code of ethics for fire companies in New York State. And so New York State came out with a requirement that we have to have a code of ethics. They came out with a model code of ethics, and we adopted the model code of ethics. Then New York State itself has a code of ethics, and it talks about nepotism. And we had a question about nepotism, and we thought the New York State General Code of Ethics had a strong nepotism policy. We amended our Code of Ethics to adopt the strong nepotism policy. So our code is a combination of the New York State Model Code of Ethics for Fire District with the Model Code of Ethics for New York State public employees regarding nepotism. So that's our code. The problem is we can't get anybody to volunteer for the committee, and that's why we decided we should have a lawyer be the person to write ethical opinions. Now, I'm not asking for a lot here. I'm just saying we should have somebody, and we can move on a little bit. I mean, here's another question.
No, I don't want you to get into the volunteers just yet. So my question is, so your questions regarding my ethical disposition in this district is about matters that have already come and gone. So if this attorney was to come back and say there was an ethical conflict, which I doubt he would.
Not conflict, appearance.
Appearance. An appearance of impropriety that I, as a taxpayer and a town employee, should not have negotiated a contract for labor for a different entity of which I'm not an employee of, who I don't even share the same benefits of. And the other people who you mentioned are part-time employees who do a great job here, but they're also part-time and they're not a collective bargaining unit. And I'm not a member of a collective bargain. I don't have a collective bargaining agreement. I'm a CSEA member, which basically means I have no collective bargaining aspect at all. So my question is exactly, what is the point?
The point
I mean, it's about me, so I'm asking these questions
No, it's not
me.
about you.
It is.
It's
How could it
about
not be about
having-
me when it's about me?
It's having a system in place where a lawyer would answer this in an hour and get back and then move down the road.
A lawyer would look at this probably and say, why is a commissioner spending more time trying to police a fire board than do what the taxpayers put him here to do? The taxpayers did not elect fire commissioners here to police one another. We have almost an $18 million budget that we have to steward, and we're spending our time trying to roll in the mud for political gain, which is all I could assume this is, and this is a non-political
There's a
board.
reason why commissioners need to be policed. If you go back
Not by you,
years,
though.
and I would wish New York State would be more active, but if you go back years ago with the health insurance problems we had 2 commissioners who didn't pay for their health care when they were retired. They just didn't pay for years. Sorry, they didn't pay. We didn't know that. Treasurer never told us. They never told us. We found it out in 2013 when we did an audit.
But you were on the board.
Yeah, but how was I supposed to know they weren't paying for their health care? Nobody, the auditing firm didn't figure it out. We figured it out. I figured it out with Mike Rogan. That happened.
But
And let me go on further.
that's not happening now. Nobody here is,
Right now-
is or a former member of this district.
No, but we have now, I'll give you a little example. Let's go to Tuckahoe Hose Company.
There we
Simple
go.
simple little
You had the
example.
night off.
I thought next month, but let me also inform the public. You know, he's blaming Commissioner Stewart for being on this board and working for the town. We had Commissioner Pinto here. He was the head of the DPW in Tuckahoe, okay? And he was also held the title of Commissioner of Highways for the village of Tuckahoe. And he was on the negotiation team when he was a fire board commissioner. And there was not a problem. There was not one problem, and nobody objected to it. Not one citizen objected to it. In fact, he was elected three different times. He spent 15 years on this board, and Commissioner Pinto did an excellent job negotiating when he was on that part of the negotiation team, and also, he was the first one to start to buy new rigs here also. He started with the Tuckahoe Hose Company by buying a new we had an American LaFrance, and he bought the first Mack truck for down there. And then that proceeded on and on and on. And he did a wonderful job, and he worked for the village of Tuckahoe for almost 30 years, and he also was a village trustee. So how much more could a man do than give his time to this community and this town? And he was not condemned the way Commissioner Winters is doing to Commissioner Raban, and that's a shame.
I'm sorry, I just spend too much time working for the community, apparently. It's a conflict, I should
So
step back.
let me give you an example that
All
I
right,
find
here
to
we
be
go.
a flagrant example. We recently got the Tuckahoe Hose Company bylaws. These bylaws were adopted in 1948.
45.
And 48, and we're told they're current. All applicants for membership shall be white, male, able to read and write.
Let me clarify that before this man goes on, okay? And I went to the chief with this, and I went to our chairman of the board. When we did that, we said that was outlawed. And we all said, look, this is gonna cost too much money to redo the books, and we had a member of our company, Mr. Camano, may he rest in peace, he was a printer, okay? And he told us it was gonna cost a lot of money to change this whole book. So we did on a gentleman's agreement to cross that line out, verbally not use it. We got rid of the black ball, marbles and all that, and we agreed to it, and we let that go. I told the chief, I told the chairman of it, and that's it. And we are the first company in this department that have a black man in our company. So he's just doing this to crank stuff up, get going, and get the people aggravated, because he knows it's election time, and he's gonna really crank this up at election time. So he's just getting prepared for himself. This is his normal way of working.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so all I did was ask for get a copy.
And you
We
got
asked
it.
for a copy of the Tuckahoe Hose Company bylaws.
And you got it.
And I got it, and I see white males, and I go, that's not very good.
Okay, what did
And
I
then-
just explain?
Well, you explained. So I asked
So
her,
you're not happy with that explanation?
no, I'm not happy with that explanation.
Of course
And
not.
then-
Nothing that I do is you're happy with.
And then, would you could just let me finish? I'm not going to be
I don't
argumentative,
see
I'm
what
just
the
speaking.
point of this is.
Here's the point of this.
Yeah, here we go.
Let me get to the point. It says, "This company shall retain its charter as long as 5 members meet regularly. This clause shall not be amended or repealed." Okay, so you need at least 5 members in the Tuckahoe Hose Company to have a fire company. Mr. Laurie supplied us a list of how many people are in the Tuckahoe Hose Company. There's 3. So, my question is, why is the Eastchester Fire District insuring the Tuckahoe Hose Company when their bylaws say they're like poof? And we don't get answers to stuff. This would be a simple lawyer would answer this and say, can you have bylaws that just say white people in them?
Here we
And they
go
would
again
probably
with that.
tell you no.
You got the answer. Why do you keep bringing that up?
But we can't,
What did I just tell you? We have a black man in the company. Commissioner Raban saw him at the inspection. He met him. Commissioner Roach saw him. You were on your excursion trips.
Who has the checkbook for this account, for this fire district, for this
Who
company?
wants to know? You do or the board?
I do. Who's the checkbook for this fire
When the
company?
board notifies me, I will let you know.
It's only one guy, it's you, and you refuse to give us the checkbook. Now,
Why should I give you the checkbook?
because it's public information and the board asked for it. So my point is, this is what you deal with when you don't have ethics counsel to vent simple little matters. When you have three
That
guys
Commissioner
who are
Winters
just
raised.
work as a team.
Excuse me. First of all, if you start talking about three guys doing whatever, you pretty much invented that in this district. So let's not start pointing the finger because three guys are working together and maybe the other two have a different opinion on certain matters and don't work always in tandem. That's the way government works. But there was a very long time on this board where it was four guys working in tandem again with one other person, but that was fine. Tom Roach already this evening mentioned to you in executive session that he would appreciate it if everyone worked together, specifically you, and being able to come in and help with things. You scoff at it. So don't also say that these three are acting in their own. You have been invited, as well as Mr. Carlo, every step of the road. We act as a board. But you don't want to do that. You don't.
Okay.
Oh, so you agree, you don't want to do
No,
that. You don't want to do that.
I'm
So
just saying,
for
let's
going
adopt the
forward-
code of ethics
No, no,
tonight
no,
and
no,
move
no, no,
forward.
no, no. We're not going there yet. You agree that you don't want to do that.
No, I want to adopt the code of ethics and follow New
Right,
York
so you
State
don't
law.
want to do that. So extending olive branches and worrying about whether or not 5 people are going to work together or 4 people are going to work together, it's a waste of time. We're wasting time right now. We're wasting taxpayer time
We're
right
having a
now.
great conversation. I enjoy this.
I know you do.
Right,
It
but
doesn't
what you
bother me.
don't enjoy is your fiduciary duty to look over the district. That you don't enjoy.
No, that's not the case whatsoever.
That's what it seems
I
like to
think-
me.
I think
Because you
good-
don't want to work with the board.
I think good government vents what they should be venting. The people at home who come here to our meetings never, but the people at home have a right to watch how we negotiate.
That's
We
correct.
We just settled a
And that's why these
budget.
meetings are live now, which for many years they were not. And
We-
now they're live.
but
So
we-
that people can watch it and we're not hiding from anyone.
But the public should know who negotiates their contract,
you say.
what they do.
Of
They
course,
should know these volunteer fire companies don't exist. There's only one volunteer fire company that might have a chance of existing, and that's Waverly. I would well, I don't know for sure, but I'd love to see the bylaws in Chester Heights and, and see what their bylaws say. I mean, they might be the same. I mean, we got to stay current with, we got to, you can't live in a vacuum, in a bubble.
Okay.
You live in the bubble.
But we also, you want good government is venting. Good government is making policy and making progress and reinvesting tax dollars. That's only been going on properly for the last, how long am I here? 3 years? 3 years. 3 years. 3 years. So in the last 3 years, we have a long list of things between different versions of this board that we can say have been getting done on behalf of the taxpayer that are positive. Purchase of trucks, Chester Heights construction moving forward, a negotiated CBA, which has a lot more cost-effective savings in that agreement for the taxpayer that we didn't even get a chance to discuss because you're acting as if we got taken on a ride with these guys, which is not anywhere near accurate, because we also have a decrease in the EMT percentage as far as how it's going to be calculated, which is the $10,000 savings per employee moving forward, if you were to look at the actual numbers. They are starting at $55,000. It's a 6-year term to top out, which is a huge chunk, versus a 5-year top out. In fact, I think we may be one of the few districts right now that have greater than 5. I know that I believe New Rochelle has 7. We got an extra step out of them because the union came and said, we understand that you need to change the district for the future, for the taxpayer, to make it affordable for people to be here. We also don't want to blow through a tax cap and cause more money to come into the district and not have it reinvested. I understand there's little opinions about where money could go or whatever, but certain commissioners, right, wanted to increase it how much more? We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Because we're taxpayer-centric, and we take care of the men and women in this department because they do a job, they put their lives on the line, and I am not going to sit here and feel as if I erred in any way, and I don't think that Commissioner Roach should feel that either. I think we spent a lot of time on this topic. We've already had this motion out. We can call for a vote on this ethics thing, but it still doesn't have a mechanism. So,
It does. So here's what, as far as managing this fire department and how much money we manage, if you look at our apparatus we bought, we spent $2 million in apparatus. We spent another $1.5 million down in Chester Heights fixing it up. We've fixed the North End Firehouse a few years back. From a financial management point of view, it hasn't happened in 3 years. It's happened over a long time. We don't have the money we have, we don't have the reserve we have, we don't have the financial controls we have in the last 3 years. Those things have been put in place over a long period of time. It's not in the last 3 years. I can guarantee you that. We don't have, our relationship with the union is vastly improved from years ago. It's not just the last 3 years. And I take exception to the fact that you think we're so managed so wonderfully in the last 3 years. It's been a long road to get it in this position.
right, so the first meeting that I had here as a commissioner in January of 2017, we had a 2016 budget surplus of $1.4 million left over in money. That means that $1.4 million of taxpayer money was not used to support the district. And I raised issue with that. And Commissioner Incledon told me that it was because of certiorarities and whatever else. And at the time, it was my first meeting. But that's what and you can go back and watch the meeting. That's the reason why we had a $1.4 million surplus. But that money was not invested back in the community. Also, when I came on here, you're right, you had money. You had almost $30 million in the bank when I came onto this board in January of 2017, and 2 weeks before that, the floor in Chester Heights fell.
No, we didn't have $30 million.
You did too, because you had a $17 million budget and a $14 million surplus. You had $30 million.
No.
You did. Go back and check the numbers. You did.
What date is this we talking about?
January of 2017. Between what you had in the bank and what you were asking from the taxpayer, you had $17 million in your budget. You had between $9 and $12 million in reserves. That's what you had. But the floor in Chester Heights fell because of neglect, because the money was not being reinvested.
The floor hasn't fallen.
Of course it did. That's why you have all, how many the floor hasn't fallen
You're
in?
using that firehouse today.
The floor didn't fall in?
No, the floor, we put steel plates on it in 2015.
Because it was
No, you
cracking.
put steel plates in December of 2016.
Because it was cracking.
15.
16.
16, because it was cracking.
16. You put it, you approved the expenditure for the plates in Chester Heights on December 9th, 2016. It was a Friday evening meeting, the same meeting which you approved the last CBA that went through arbitration with Local 916. Same night. So with all the money that this board was financially managing accordingly, and it predates Jamie, of course, you had the floor in Chester Heights fall in. 4 by 4, 16 square feet of that floor
didn't
fell
fall
in.
in.
Of course it did. You had to pull the truck out because it couldn't, Steve, am I wrong?
Sagging.
It was sagging.
It was sagging in the crack.
If you go downstairs, all the concrete will come down.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's much better.
And FSI gave us two quotes to fix that floor. One was in the mid-40s and the other was about 45,000.
Right.
And we fixed it for about 19,000, not using FSI.
It's not fixed. But FSI also gave you a report in November of 2014 indicating that that floor was going to fail within a year. And what happened? That was November of 2015. And in December of 2016, what happened? The floor failed.
In January 2019, Tom wanted to close that firehouse.
Don't put this on Commissioner Roach. We're talking about money. Don't misdirect to
Did we
Mr.
not?
Roach. Did we not say that we had money, right? So in 2015, you have an FSI report done that indicates that Chester Heights is failing. But for those several years before that, where are the proposals from engineers to redo Chester Heights? They're in a box, if there are any, sitting in the fire district headquarters in a closet that Peter Incledon goes and finds. That's where they are. So I understand we're not going to agree. It's okay. But from a taxpayer perspective, from somebody who was looking at this board, I would have liked to have seen Chester Heights done by 2019. We know that's not happening. But it wasn't even started until 2017. So money management is one thing, but not reinvesting that money that you're managing back into the district, trucks falling apart, gas tanks falling off, breaking down in the middle of the road. Nobody's looking at saying, oh, thank goodness the fire district has $9 million in surplus, while the bladder in the truck is breaking and all the water is shooting down the street.
No, it's,
Did that not happen?
You had the truck towed in.
Did that not happen?
Yeah.
Did we not have a fire in the Chester Heights firehouse because of bad wiring?
no, come on, the fire in the Chester Heights Firehouse was 15 years ago.
Oh, 15 years ago and still nothing was done. But
Oh,
now,
it's got
but
a
now
brand-
it's getting done,
it got a
even if it's getting
400
done slowly.
it got
The
a
chief,
brand new 400
always
service
forward.
after the fire.
Right, chief? Always forward. So even if we move slow, we're moving forward. I'm on my soapbox. I'm done with it. But I'm not going to sit here and be silent all the time. I think I'm a pretty mild-mannered person when I'm up here. But I do not like being characterized different than who I am. And I am not an unethical person. And I do take exception to that.
I'm not
Because
saying you were, I'm saying we can ask
incorrect,
a lawyer.
inappropriate to lie to me, especially now, and
I
tell me
don't lie
that
to
you're not,
anyone.
that you're
I
not
don't
saying.
lie to anyone.
Okay.
Make that straight.
Okay, all
All
right.
right, can I sum up here? So basically, we're going to, because we have to vote on something that we set a motion, we're gonna vote on it. So the understanding of the whole 5 members here, and maybe it may need to be adapted for future boards, is that if anyone has an ethical question, we're gonna convene as a board and decide whether we're gonna send that to ethical counsel in an executive session.
Correct.
All right,
I
fine.
don't know if you have to, I don't know if you do it in executive session, actually. I think it might have to be in
It
public.
might have to be in public, okay, right, because it's
think it
to
has to be
spend
in
money,
public.
you're absolutely right.
But even so, I don't think matters like this can be, it's not part of an executive session, it's not personnel.
Okay.
Unless it has to do with a personnel issue, I think it has to be done in public. But we can verify that, but I'm pretty sure it has to be done in public.
Now, do you think that at some point we need to add a mechanism for getting together?
I think so. That's
So
my opinion.
Can we vote on this tonight and then add the
You
mechanism?
can vote
later?
however you want. I feel this is requiring a mechanism of whatever, so.
So I would make a motion, we adopt what Cheryl Sacco sent us to make the changes to the Code of Ethics. And as of tonight, we adopt
Right, we
it.
have a motion, it's just about polling the board.
Well, who seconded
Right,
it?
Lisa?
Yes, it
Yeah.
was you and then Roach.
Right.
Okay, hold the board then, I guess.
So, you can
Discussion
poll the
over?
board. Lisa?
Chairman Rabin?
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie?
No.
Commissioner Winter?
Aye.
Commissioner Roach?
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo?
Aye.
Great. Let's see, what's next on our long list of things to do today? Local 916, do you have anything? You're all set?
Steve, don't you want to
Thank
join
you.
this?
Commissioner reports. Mr. Laurie, do you have anything
Yeah.
tonight?
I don't know if everyone knows, but tomorrow's the 9/11 ceremony at Town Hall at 8:30. And September 29th, we have the Gold Star Mother Memorial Ceremony at 10 a.m. On Route 22, Memorial Park. All are invited up at this board, including Chief, without a doubt. We always have a piece of apparatus there. And then after the ceremony, it's about a half-hour ceremony. We're going to the quarry for breakfast, the men are always invited who come with the rigs. And September 14th, Harrison's having their 125th anniversary parade and celebration. And I spoke to the chief, and we have to get the board approval. If we could use the maintenance truck, we will pick it up around 2 o'clock if we could. The possibility of a pumper coming with us for public relations to show one of our new rigs off. Soon as the parade is over, who's ever driving could just return back to headquarters. And that's, the parade is at 4 o'clock. We'll be leaving at 2 o'clock.
Okay. Oh, Chief, did you have something to say?
For the Mamaroneck Parade, the board took exception to having a rig taken out of town and put in a parade for another district, so I would prefer if the board made the decision as to whether or not I'd be allowed to send an apparatus as per Commissioner Laurie's request.
Why would we do that? Why would we send apparatus out of town for volunteers?
We did it
As
for
you said,
many,
it was
many
public
years.
relations.
We sent a piece of apparatus. If we didn't send anything that was on duty, we sent a spare piece of apparatus.
Where's this going to?
Harrison.
Why? Why are
I
we
just read it to you. It's the 125th anniversary of the Harrison Fire Department.
If I remember correctly, last year, it was Despair that we sent. Is that correct?
That's fine. That's
Is that
For
what we-
Mamaroneck, yeah, a year ago, I think we did send a rig to Mamaroneck.
Yes.
This year,
You didn't, they only send the maintenance truck.
right.
I just got done telling you, their bylaws say white males, and we're gonna send.
Here we go with that. Are you hard of hearing? Are you hard of hearing? I had said to you, that thing was removed. It had to be removed back in the early 90s, and you just won't let it go. I bet you if it was another company, would you let it go? Only because my name is there. You do everything to aggravate me, and you do everything to cut me down. Since the day I've been on this board, you've been fighting me, Dennis. Since the day one I've been on this board, you've been fighting me, and you haven't stopped, and the public sees it. You only see what you see, but the public doesn't know how much you spent last year in fighting a former chief. Tell the public how much you spent.
Anything.
No, you didn't. I know you didn't. The Eastchester Fire Department paid taxpayers' money, spent over $40,000 for a case that you took to court and you lost, and you had to pay $40,000 this district had to pay, plus course fee. Yes, you did, Dennis. You hate to lose.
As I remember.
Oh, stop it. Just stop. I don't even want to hear you.
In August 2017, you and Mr. Raven voted that I shouldn't talk to council, and therefore, I didn't help in that case anymore, and the district didn't
Oh,
prevail.
yeah, I know, Dennis. You always come out smelling like a rose. Just like every time something's done, what do you tell the board and the public? I did it. I did it. And the board, this board here, the other four people do nothing. You do everything. You know, it's time you stop and get off my back, because that's all you've been doing is aggravating me for 4 years.
Okay, a little water. Tensions run high. Okay, so last year we didn't approve it, correct?
We
We
sent
approved
just
the
the
maintenance.
maintenance.
For the
The
Mamaroneck
maintenance.
Parade, yeah, they sent.
Just the maintenance truck.
Yeah.
Just so that I understand completely, if an apparatus was to go, it would be, even if it was a spare, we'd be paying a firefighter to.
Sure, yeah, we'd take an engine out of service to do that,
Steve, can we do that straight time?
personnel.
Maybe 5 years from now, we can put that in there. Parade details, straight time.
Maybe once Mr. Winters off the board, you could do it. As long as Mr. Laurie's on here, Mr. Winters is here, you won't do it. I know it won't. But we used to do it for many, many years. You know, many times we had 2 apparatus go to parades. And then we cut it down to 1, and now we're down to the maintenance truck. You know, it's a shame.
Right, it is. But I would say that looking at it, it would be probably helpful that if we wanted to send an apparatus there, if Harrison was sending something to us directly. I do understand the tradition and what have you, but I know that last year we sent the precedent that we weren't sending anything but the maintenance truck, and I know that sucks, I get it. But we may have to just uphold that again for another year. I mean, that's my opinion, the rest of the board can vote. I would prefer that we had a much better relationship up here and in this matter, but it just seems like we may have to uphold that for another year, but the board can feel free to vote however they want. I am not inferring my opinion or my position on anyone. They vote yes, vote no, abstain, whatever you like to do. It's your right. So Mr. Laurie has made a motion to allow for or ask
No, I
for the.
didn't make a motion, I just recommended it.
Right, so, you know, we have to approve it, so.
Are we going to amend it, so it's only the maintenance?
Well, it
truck,
would just
or-
be the maintenance truck. Well, it would be whatever anybody feels comfortable. I don't have a problem with the maintenance truck going. I don't. I'm sorry. I know it's tough.
What does
And
Tim
it's not-
think? It's his truck, right?
Oh, he doesn't mind, because it's used after hours, so Tim would be home by then anyway.
It's a Saturday.
Plus, there's
okay.
actually two pickup trucks, because they used to have the mechanic and then the maintenance person, so we actually have two pickup trucks that, Tim uses just so they both get driven.
And they have the Eastchester Fire Department logo on them.
Yeah, they have the patch on the doors, and if the pickup truck were to go, Commissioner Laurie drives it, so we don't lose any career personnel and no rigs come out of service.
And of course, nobody no money.
Oh, we don't pay him?
No, I don't pay nobody.
Hey, even better.
You're talking my language.
All right, well, I would make a motion to allow them to bring the maintenance truck to this parade, and I would ask for a second.
I can second that.
Okay, and Lisa, you can most certainly hold the board for us.
Chairman Raven,
I will say yes.
Commissioner Laurie,
Aye.
Commissioner Winter,
No?
Commissioner Roach,
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, Commissioner, Mr. Carl, you have anything?
I do not.
Okay, Mr. Winter, do you have anything else?
No, I would say nothing else.
Mr. Roach, anything?
There's a young middle school student that is suffering from cancer. He's going to recover, but the community is having a benefit for him. It's called September 15th, the Shave Off. So if you hear about it and or you're interested in getting a haircut like I myself is, you can look it up and show up. Thank you very much.
All right, great. As far as myself, just once again, as a reminder, we are meeting next week at 255 Main Street for our next regular scheduled meeting, and we will be there for November as well. I had one other thing that I did want to mention, I did forget, but before I do anything, Lisa, our secretary, has some information regarding the December election that we want to provide today rather than waiting for the next meeting. So Lisa, go ahead.
Okay. The annual fire district election for fire commissioner will be held on the second Tuesday in December, specifically December 10th, 2019, between 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. In order to run, please submit a petition of 25 names by November 20th, 2019, to myself at 255 Main Street. We will not be using the Chester Heights Firehouse as a polling station, again, for the upcoming election. The board, I guess, due to the construction. Due to the construction being performed at the Chester Heights Firehouse, we will now utilize the Eastchester Town Hall, located at 40 Mill Road, New York, 10709, as the alternate polling location. That's it.
Great,
You want
thank
the-
you.
Lisa, let it be known, as I told you last year, the polling district people bring the votes back to the firehouse. Lisa and Captain Calby last year had to run from every poll district. That is not the way it's done. One person is the chairman of the district, and they bring the votes, when it's tallied, back to headquarters. Lisa stays in the headquarters and waits for it to return.
Okay, thanks. Further to that, during our September meeting of last year, the Board of Fire Commissioners carried out a motion adopting and permitting the use of absentee ballots. And that was the September 11th, 2018 meeting. That meeting and that motion that was carried specifically only applied to the 2018 election.
I make a
So we
motion.
would need to make a motion to allow for absentee ballots again.
I'll make that motion.
All right, Mr. Laura will make that
Did we
motion.
have some restriction on those ballots last year?
No, there was a request for a restriction, but there was not. We utilized about 15, right, or so of those, people use them. And it's a very little cost to the district, it's really just postage and time thing, which is precious, but we're not talking about a lot of money here at all to utilize this service for our residents. So Mr. Laurie has made a motion to allow for absentee ballots. I would second it, and I would ask Lisa to please poll the board.
Chairman Raven.
Aye?
Commissioner Laurie.
Aye.
Commissioner Winter.
Aye.
Commissioner Roach.
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
Aye.
All right. Okay, so whereas Section 175A of the town law provides for a system of registration for fire district elections, and whereas a register of eligible fire district voters must be prepared prior to the fire district election, and whereas such register shall be prepared for names of persons who have registered with the Westchester County Board of Elections, Now therefore be it resolved that the following resident electors of the Eastchester Fire District are hereby appointed to constitute the Eastchester Fire District Board of Elections for the 2019 annual Fire District election. Chairman of Elections, Lisa Gutierrez. And be it further resolved that the Fire District's Chairman of Election be compensated in the amount of $50 for her services to the Board of Elections, and be compensated in the amount of those people who are election services, that the Board of Elections be compensated in the amount of $50 for their services in preparing registration records, and that the following be appointed as election inspectors at the Fire District election to be held on Tuesday, December 10th, 2019, and all election inspectors to be compensated $50. So it's $50 for Lisa, $50 for the Board of Elections, and $50 for everyone who works the election polls that day. I would make a motion
Now, if
to...
one person works straight through, they get the same amount.
Right, yeah.
So if they work from 2 to
Correct.
9.
Yes.
Okay.
So...
Some people split.
Right. So I would make a motion to adopt this resolution and ask for a second.
Second.
Mr. Laurie, please poll the board.
Chairman Raven.
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie.
Aye.
Commissioner Winter.
Aye.
Commissioner Roach.
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
All right. The County of Westchester Board of Elections will supply a list of approved election inspectors to utilize electronic voting machines on Election Day. And be it further resolved that in the case of any of the members appointed herein are unable or refuse to assume or perform the duties required of them, this Board of Fire Commissioners or election chairman may appoint alternates who are resident electors and reassign locations as needed. I would make a motion to adopt the resolution and ask for a second. Mr. Winter, poll the board, please. Lisa?
Chairman Raven.
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie.
Aye.
Commissioner Winter. Commissioner Roach.
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
All right, we're almost done. Be it resolved that the Board of Fire Commissioners of the Eastchester Fire District, having heretofore appointed a Board of Elections to comply registration and voting procedures set forth in Section 175 and 175-A of the Town Law, does hereby designate on or about the 25th day of November 2019 between the hours of 1 p.m. and 4 p.m. as the date and time of the meeting of the Board of Elections to prepare registration rolls for the annual election of the Eastchester Fire District. The Fire District election will be held on Tuesday, December 10th, 2019, between the hours of 2 p.m. and 9 p.m. at the following locations: Leroy Gregory American Legion Post number 979 at 40 Bell Road Avenue, Scarsdale; Eastchester Town Hall, 40 Mill Road, Eastchester, New York; Tuckahoe Community Center, 77 Columbus Avenue, Tuckahoe, New York; and Bronxville Village Hall, 200 Pondfield Road, Bronxville, New York. I make a motion to adopt the resolution and ask for a second.
Second.
Mr. Roach, poll the board, please.
Chairman Raven.
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie. Commissioner Winter. Commissioner Roach.
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
All right. Be it further resolved that a legal notice informing the resident electors of the Eastchester Fire District of this meeting be published one time by the Fire District Secretary in the official newspapers of the Eastchester Fire District between November 6th and 13, 2019. I will make a motion to adopt that resolution and ask for a second.
Second.
Nobody wants to second this? All right, great, thank you. And poll the board.
Commissioner Raven. Chairman Raven.
Sure.
Commissioner Laurie. Commissioner Winter. Commissioner Roach.
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
All right. This is the legal notice, and that's it.
Just
Oh, wait, there is one.
reminded to everybody who's ever running, please, wherever you put your political or poster signs, nothing on monuments. That includes veterans monuments, any kind of monument that's around town. If it's an old stone mill, whatever you want to call it, nothing on monuments.
Private property only, not public. There's, one more resolution. The Fire Board Chairman is authorized to execute all documents provided by Westchester County Board of Election and authorize vendors for the use and transportation of electronic voting machines for the December 10, 2019 annual fire election. I'll make that motion and ask for a second. All right, poll the board, please.
Chairman Raven.
Aye.
Commissioner Laurie. Commissioner Winter. Commissioner Roach.
Aye.
Commissioner Carlo.
Okay, great. Public comments? Mr. Vichy?
On the Harrison Parade, the start is at 4 p.m. It starts at Halsted Avenue and Hunter Street and ends on Harrison Avenue. And the celebration and block party, fireworks, the whole shooting match, Family Day is at the Harrison train station. I just have a comment on Mr. Winter's bylaws from the Tucker Hose Company. I can honestly say over the last 40 years of me being in the department, those bylaws are gone, outdated, and just never went by the wayside. When I stood before the Board of Fire Commissioners, I got 3 things: my badge, an alarm book, and the rules and regulations of the fire department, all dated 1979. As far as the part that he's reading from 1940, whatever it was, with white males, as you saw in October, July, whatever, we do have a minority of African-American heritage. We've also had in this department 4 females that I know of. One was a member, a very good firefighter, Nicole, who was from Waverly Engine Company, 2 in the North End, and 1 from Union Corners, who is not only a female, but a minority as well, who is a paid man, a paid woman right now.
Mr. Vissi, you're from Union Corners, right?
Absolutely,
Now, you gave us a list of how many members were in Union Corners,
yes.
and it was about 10 people. A majority of those
I
people...
don't remember offhand.
No, it was about 10 people. I went through the list, and I think a majority of those people, they don't live here anymore. And I came down to, I think pretty much you were the only member I could tell actually living in town still. And then when I looked at the Union Corners down at the firehouse, they have, you know, those books are sitting around, the bylaws for the Union Corners Fire Company. It says white males. So has it been updated?
What was the year on that book? 19 what?
It's the
34?
bylaws for the not-for-profit corporation. It's either your bylaws or you're not your bylaws.
But what was the date? I don't recollect.
It was like 1938 or something.
Okay.
Okay, but the bylaws, okay, Union Corners bylaws. Here we go.
There you go, you found it.
Okay,
Paper's probably yellow unless you got a newer one.
okay, 1933.
Hey,
Okay, so these are your bylaws. This says how this not-for-profit corporation can function. Because this is the bylaws are basically the charter for the not-for-profit corporation. And so, here's our little fire company here, and let's see what the members have to be. I mean, you gotta love this stuff.
You love doing this.
Oh, I just would like to see
Okay,
people
so-
do things.
Yeah, go
but
ahead.
was it 1934, like, 85 years ago?
86 to be exact. He said-
Any person desiring membership in the company must be white male, at least 21 years of age to 55, of good moral character, citizen of the United States, the town of Eastchester. So, we have fire companies, and you're telling me this is the book that you currently, you know, the current bylaws, whose charters,
I have no idea if that's the current bylaws. I don't know if they were ever updated. I'm telling you what I know in my 40 years in the department.
yeah, but how many members, look at, I think there's one member in this company. I think it's
What are
you.
we talking about here? We're talking about that line now or the members? He's saying that he doesn't have...
Well,
he doesn't-
Let's
I just
confuse
wanna
the
make-
issue. Come to his aid and confuse the issue.
I'm not confused. You're confusing me. Are we talking about the bylaws being a problem, or we're talking about the numbers in the organization?
Both are a problem.
Okay, so
Because
Mr.
if
Vichy
you,
has said that...
if you have a fire company that has nobody other than yourself, then it's not a fire company.
Did I send you a list?
Yeah,
There you go, those are the members that are in the company.
and they still live in town, all those people.
As far as I know, they are all members of the department and live in the town, except for one, lives in Mount Vernon, which is behind the mobile station
I went through.
in Chester Heights.
They don't.
He lives 4 houses behind the mobile station, which if you look, he can get to the firehouse quicker than his brother Pete, who lives on Orchard Drive.
Most of these guys moved out a long time ago.
He lives, I'm telling you, on Hillcrest in Mount Vernon.
I mean,
Brian, where does Chris Watson live?
On Hillcrest.
Thank you. End of story.
All right, yeah. Nothing else from the public? Paul Ranalone has a presentation for us. about 9/11, a yearly tradition. This may be the last,
You need to be reading
this
this
is the penultimate one?
after everything that's going on tonight. Very appropriate.
Yes.
When I come to that specific sentence, I'll let everybody know. But, tomorrow is the 18th anniversary of 9/11, and there are, which means most high school seniors and many college freshmen have no living memory of that event. To them, it's just a history lesson, like Pearl Harbor is a history lesson for me and the rest of the board, everybody else. So hopefully, they are teaching what happened on that day and what's happened since that day moving forward. And it's not a political thing at all. It's history. It happened. And enough on that. From Wednesday, September 12, 2001, through Sunday, September 16th, the Eastchester Fire Department sent a fully manned engine and ladder company to cover Bronx firehouses or to stand by at Yonkers Raceway for deployment. I was at Station 1 and remember feeling worried about these mutual aid companies, not knowing what might happen to them. On Thursday, September 13th, Mount Vernon Fire Department Local 107, in conjunction with the Westchester Professional Firefighters Coalition, was able to contact officials in New York City in order to organize a relief effort. After getting approval to do so, they contacted all the professional firefighter unions in Westchester. In a matter of a few hours, 120 firefighters from all over Westchester met at Mount Vernon's Fire Department Station 3. Included in that number were 10 firefighters from Eastchester. 2 EFD members were able to get 3 buses at no cost. Shortly before 7 p.m., the 3 buses left Mount Vernon with state police escort to Manhattan. Almost from the time we turned onto the West Side Highway, people lined both sides of the street with signs and flags, many thanking us and cheering. Signs read, "God bless you, and you're our heroes." The buses parked off Hudson Street on Beach Street. Upon arrival, all firefighters were organized into 10-man companies with either the lieutenant or captain in charge. I took command of the Eastchester contingent. We walked from the buses to the staging area, 1 block from what has now become known as Ground Zero, which the rescuers called the pile. Along the way, people on the sidewalks clapped and thanked us, offered us water, food, gloves, masks, and anything else we might need to do our work. Walking along, we could see and smell the smoke from what was once the World Trade Center. At the staging area, we saw an engine and ladder truck on a side street. The truck's aerial was mangled and bent over the cab. The engine was recognizable only by the front part of the cab, where the driver and officer would sit. Everything else had been crushed to about 5 feet high. On the officer's door, someone had written in memory of the lieutenant and firefighters who had apparently all been killed. After getting permission to proceed, we passed the parking lot filled with burnt-out cars. We stood in front of 3 World Financial Center, now used as a rest and rehab station. Construction workers cut up the fallen North Bridge in preparation to move it out of the way in order to gain access to the main area of debris behind it with heavy equipment. We walked between 3 and 4 World Financial Center, along the Winter Garden Atrium, and into the 2 World Financial Center, to the front entrance on West Street. From this point, we got an unobstructed view of the massive destruction. From this entrance to 2 World Trade Center, a distance of about 600 feet, were steel I-beams lying parallel with 3 feet apart on top of 10 to 15 feet of concrete and other pulverized debris. There were several hundred rescuers in about a dozen bucket brigades removing debris from around the 7-story stump of the tower and passing it down to the front of the financial center where it was dumped and the empty buckets returned to the front of the line. Iron workers cut up steel beams which would be passed down the line and thrown on the pile. We filled in on several of these lines, balancing ourselves on the box beams. In some areas, you could see through the rubble and see the remains of a fire truck or ambulance. Several of our firefighters attempted to tunnel beneath the box beams in order to look for victims below us. Every so often, someone would yell to be quiet. The generators and power tools would be shut down, and everyone would stop working and just listen for any sounds from the debris pile. After a minute or so, work would continue. Looking up and around from the middle of ground zero gave a clear view of the destruction. Every window facing the Twin Towers had been blown out, and chunks of buildings had been gouged out from the falling debris. The sides of the remaining buildings were covered in a thin coat of powder that could be seen floating in the air through the glow of floodlights. It was several inches thick from many blocks around the site. Despite the hard work, early Friday morning it got noticeably cooler, and about 2 a.m. it started to rain. A drizzle at first, suddenly it started getting heavy, making footing treacherous, and since we were working in t-shirts, the rain just made us wetter and more uncomfortable. An FDNY chief officer called off operations, and our chief officers decided it was time to go back. So we picked up our gear and headed back to the buses. On the buses, we were tired, cold, and wet. There was little, if any, talking on the return trip to Mount Vernon. I began to wonder what we had accomplished by going down there. We moved perhaps a couple of tons of debris, a literal drop in the bucket of the estimated 1.2 million tons of rubble. We had saved no lives, only one body had been recovered. Yet for 8 hours, we had been willing participants of a piece of history, something people will talk about long after we are gone. We were the first group of firefighters to go down to ground zero, but not the last. 2 shifts of Westchester firefighters, Eastchester included, per day responded to the World Trade Center site over the course of the next several days. The only reason this effort was discontinued was the FDNY went to a 24-hour schedule with half their personnel working at any one time, meaning they had enough manpower to send to the site and man their firehouses. Whatever needed to be done and whatever we were asked to do, we would not have hesitated on this new day of infamy, September 11th, 2001. And the EFD personnel who responded that day, in addition to myself, were firefighters Quentin Baker, Joseph Pinto, Stephen Ranelone, Jay Rockhill, Ken Simonides, Glenn Strawbridge, Brian Tween, Vincent Spadaro, and William Wigerman. That's what happened when we went to ground zero. Starting on September 11th and continuing for days, weeks, and months afterwards, ordinary people, organizations, and businesses donated money, food, water, clothing to victims and rescuers. A couple of weeks later, Local 916 had a Fill the Boot fundraiser at the intersection of Mill Road and White Plains Road and collected over $20,000 in the matter of like 3 hours for the FDNY Widows and Children's Fund. 1 week after 9/11, an estimated 6,000 people filled the property outside Town Hall for a memorial service with political representatives from Eastchester, Tuckahoe, and Bronxville, the clergy of almost every faith that has membership in the town, offered words of blessing and comfort to all. The 3 police departments, the fire department, and EVAC were all well represented. Weeks later, the fire department and police department played a charity basketball game. Local 916 sponsored the collation at the funeral for Fire Marshal and Tuckahoe resident Ronald Buca at Concordia College. Members attended numerous funerals. Thanks to retired FDNY Lieutenant Bill Spinelli, and as a direct result of our sales of the FDNY 343 hats, George Glover Jr. and I were invited to attend the FDNY Memorial Service held inside Madison Square Garden in October of 2002. Although it was a cold and rainy day, about 30,000 firefighters from across the country and around the world marched in a parade prior to the services. This is what I'm talking about. It is amazing what can be accomplished when people put aside their differences, get together, and work for the common good. Thank you again.
Thank you, Paul.
With that, I would make a motion to adjourn into executive session with a moment of silence for those in remembrance of 9/11. Thank you.